All right, so we're back on the Gravy Bones cart. So in the last episode, we got the spindle bolts welded on and the brake mounts. So all that's done. We put in the steering rack mount, and I've got everything pulled apart because I cut the old brake brackets and stuff off. So now we can do the pivot setup for this brake pedal to do the 2-to-1 ratio on that, and we need to move on to the back and add a second caliper. Now the reason we're going to be adding a second caliper is because we got a hydraulic e-brake. Now that we have front brakes, we can't just slam on the pedal and lock up the rear end. So we're going to put a secondary caliper back there that is ran off this Amazon Chinese e-brake. So that's going to be pretty sick. It'll be a straight, you know, to one caliper. So we'll have dual calipers, and if we're ripping the e-brake a lot, we won't ever wear out our rear brakes. We'll still have a secondary caliper on our pedal. So that's gonna be pretty sick. So we gotta do a lot of stuff. Our steering quickener is supposed to be in the mail today. So we have to cut off this little bung that's welded through there because I want this to be a bearing setup. Dual 3/4 inch bearings, and we'll get all that built. So let's get to it. So we got the brake all hooked up. I haven't put the tie rod linking the pedal to the bracket, but you can see how I did the bracket there, and we had to notch it afterwards, and I'll clean these edges up to clear the tie rod. So we've checked it, locked the lock. That's all good. So that'll give us a double bracket, and we got bronze, oil impregnated bronze bushings inside of there. So It's a wear item that you'll replace eventually, but it'll take a super long time for those bushings because I don't have this lock nut like hammered down. So the pedal will pull that, and in return, push the master cylinder in. Since we got the steering addressed, and I still haven't made the secondary mount for this, we did get the steering quickener in the mail. But before we mount this up, so this is a Speedway 2-to-1 steering quickener. They're about $170 if you get these splined adapters. Basically they're splined 3/4 inch 36 spline, and then 3/4 inch just slick back here, and I'll show you how we'll mount all this up. But what we have to do is, because of how tiny these little brake rotors are, which this is as big as you can run on the rims I'm running, the caliper gets into the spindle there. So you can see where I marked it. I'm gonna take my plasma cutter and just cut a C out. Then the open piece of tube I'll weld up and grind it, make it all nice and smooth, give us quite a bit more angle out of this, because of course that's not enough, but we got plenty back here. I mean, we can hit the tire to the frame, but this way we cannot. So I want to get a little bit more angle out of that, and then we'll be good to put the whole front end together. So we got everything done in the front end. The only thing we have left to do is bleed the brakes. And I know a lot of you thinking this is super small rotors in these wheels, but that's the only way you can fit the brake all the way in here. And it'd be really hard to get the rotor outside of the wheel. So, and these brakes work perfectly fine with this kind of weight on it. If you had a lot larger cart, on 150s, these brakes are kind of skimpy because the discs are so small, but on this it'll work amazing. So now we have like crazy fast steering. So we start in the middle. That's as much as we can get with the tires getting in the chassis, and then all the way over. So it's literally less than a half turn from center. You know, it's like a third of a turn to lock, and then a third of a turn to lock. So super sick. And I do like the setup. If you watch this rack closely, you can see some flexing in it, and that's one of two things. One is it's only supported by one side, so this rack's under a lot of stress. So I highly recommend with these racks is buying some 34mm locking collars and clamping them around this like 2-piece collars you would use. They're shown on screen. And then I'm going to weld them to the bottom down here so the top comes off and it gives it support on these bars instead of just by these small 5/16 bolts. Another thing you could do is build a cap over, an unboltable cap over for it that would bolt here and here, and then you'd pull it out. That's what we did for the hot rod go-kart. So I did order some locking collars, some 34 mils. We can weld the bottom side to them, brace them up real nice so it's clamped around this. So we're going to be fixing the jack shaft up and basically running a jack shaft on the CVT. So the chain's going to have to come out the opposite side because we're not going to use the bolt-on plate. So because of that, we need to flip this axle. We have the rotor on this side and the sprocket on the opposite. So we're just going to drop this axle real quick, swap it, and then I've made this engine plate that we'll talk about here in a little bit and mount up a 780 CVT setup so we can run it inboard and it'll set right under the engine right here. We do have to do a little bit of trimming. We can do some nice like dimple die pieces or something right here to strengthen this. But basically we're going to have a really nice jack shaft set up that's going to kick the chain down this way, and we need to make sure we can clear the engine with the chain. It looks like we may be able to, but we might get in the side cover. So that's something else we're going to have to worry about, is just making sure we get everything in the right spot. We're a little to that way, we should be, but we can put a few washers behind this to make that right. Now we can use like instead of 3/8 bolts, 5/16, so we have a little bit of wiggle for getting it lined up, just in case we have any offness, but that looks pretty good. This pulley does need spaced out a little bit, so a couple washers thickness. And then we're just using a piece of round bar right now because I pre-cut my jack shaft, and guess what? It need to be longer, so now I gotta order a new jack shaft. Great, money down the drain. Kids won't go to college now. Okay, so we're pretty much done with gravy bones other than mounting the 2 rear calipers. And just to let you know, I'm building a wood structure in here right now. We started this late last night and finished it. So this, just to let people know why this massive thing's in here, we partnered up with BenPack a while back, and I'm sure you've seen us using their jack stands. We got this motorcycle lift, and you can actually use air and lift it, which is awesome. We got a bunch of air hose reels. We hardlined everything. Now we've had all this stuff ran for a long time, but our air compressor is just sitting on a 5x12 pad that we have poured outside. With our AC unit, and we've had it covered up by a tarp because I didn't want it getting rained on. And that's the reason you don't see us use a plasma cutter a lot, because we don't have sufficient air because we haven't hooked up our 80-gallon outside. So I built this 4x12 lean-to structure, and the reason I built it as a standalone structure is when we built the office, we put a new roof on this place when we built it, and we also like when we built the office extension or our apartment right now, we put new tin on it, but all this is the old dingy tin. So I'm wanting to re-tin that side eventually, and I didn't want to cut the tin and build a lean-to off of it. So I just built it as a freestanding structure, and we're gonna basically 6 of us will lift this up, walk it outside. We only got to walk it like 20 foot, so it shouldn't be that bad. I hope. It's all treated, so it's pretty heavy. So it's a lean-to laid face down, and so that's the reason this is in there. We're finally building the shed over the air compressor so we can use it. So this is the Jackshaft plate sitting on there. Like I said, I had to reorder a new 3/4 inch shaft from Go Power Sports. We used to keep a bunch of those, and now we only got 5/8 left. But anyways, you can see that the engine, we have 2 different sets of bolt holes. This is for a 420, this is for a 440. So when the engine is on here, it's fixed to the rear pulley, so you can't get the spacing for the belt off. Then you move this whole fixture front and back to tension the chain. Now over here, our chain, this is the only problem with this setup, is our chain can get into the side cover of the engine. So I'm gonna put a idler sprocket right here on this so it moves with this, and basically the chain will go down, loop under it, and go to that and get it away from the engine. And that'll be a fixed point. So on the next video, we should be throwing the rear calipers on and buttoning up everything. I had to order a custom sized belt. I ended up finding a Yamaha snowmobile belt that was the perfect length for this Jackshaft setup. And the reason we're doing this is the rear pulley on these bigger CVTs really needs to be inboard. So when you do that, you got to make sure you get an inboard pulley. The ones Go Power Sport sells is outboard. You can buy a cheap spring to throw in it and make it inboard. But that's the reason we're doing this Jackshaft, so we won't get any belt slip. We'll get maximum performance to the ground. Let me know what you think about this whole build. I think it's sick. It's the way I wanted Gravy Bones at the beginning. You know, with all the brakes, we got the rod hooked up. Nothing's bled yet. Everything works really nice. We got those rear or front calipers in, and I really like the way it looks. So let us know what you think about Gravy Bones. If you're interested in one of these chassis, let me know in the comment section below. I'm really trying to this winter make the jig and start building these frame kits. They will be you weld them. You'll have to get it in the mail and weld it all together, but it'll sleeve together perfectly fine. There's really no way you can mess it up. So make sure to check out the links in the video's description. We have everything we use on this chassis down below, and tell me what you think of Gravy Bones. It's going to be a sick cart, and we will be doing a suspension version later. Some people was asking about that. So guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate all your support on the channel, and stay tuned. The next video we should be giving it a test ride with everything on it. So and we got some awesome stuff to do to the hot rod go-kart. So we are supercharging a 440 for this, and we're also going to be putting a Volkswagen supercharger on the hot rod go-kart. So 2 supercharged builds coming up back to back, and the supercharged buggy is getting tore down for powder coat. So a lot of stuff happening in the future, and the Yamaha gets finished this month. So we got a lot of stuff playing, guys. Thank you so much for supporting us and watching. Make sure to check out those links. We love you, and God bless.